My sister wants to use a burial plot she doesn't own. My sister, 54F, and I, 63M, are estranged for many reasons. She was the golden child. When I got my driver's license, I was given a 1963 Chevy pickup. She got a Mustang convertible. I went to college. She did drugs and had children outside of marriage. I ended up with student debt. She was given a mobile home, which she eventually lost due to her drug use. She had 2 wonderful children who were eventually taken from her and are now doing well. Our father raised them. My parents divorced in the 1970s, due in part to the stress caused by my sister. My mother tried to help her repeatedly. She let her live with her and helped her get jobs, but my sister always relapsed. Fast forward to the present. My father died 4 years ago, and I purchased him a burial plot in Bozeman, Montana. The plot is in my name and is located in a very nice area in the Veterans section. My mother died last summer. I was at the hospital when she passed away. My sister was nowhere to be found. My mother and I were able to reconnect without my sister involved. My mother's will stated that my sister and I were supposed to inherit the house jointly. Somehow, my sister managed to get herself added to the deed with right of survivorship, which meant she received the house outright. She tried to get me to help pay the remaining mortgage, which was not going to happen. As a result, she had to sell the house, and I bought it. She was furious and took my mother's remains and disappeared, preventing us from holding a ceremony. 6 months later, she resurfaced and claimed she was paying for a burial. Here is the catch: my mother was a veteran, so a veteran organization paid for the service room, the VA provided the headstone, and then I received a call from the funeral home asking if they were burying her with my father, someone she had been divorced from for over 40 years. Update 1, short backstory: my sister is holding my mother's remains hostage to get her way. She wants to bury my mother in the plot I own, where my father is buried. They have been divorced for more than 40 years. After doing some research, I offered to pay to inter my mother in the Veterans Wall. My sister threw a fit. Not directly to me, we do not speak, but she informed the funeral home that she would not return the remains. I would have had to buy an additional plot, but I had just bought a house and was furnishing it, so money was tight. She knew this. It was my mother's house, and she was angry that I bought it. She has driven by it several times. I am preparing to put it on the short-term rental market. After talking with family members, including the grandchildren, I finally gave in. We buried my mother in my father's plot. She received an in-ground brass marker. It hurts deeply that my sister reduced my mother's service to what feels like a brass welcome mat in front of my father's headstone. My family tells me they will remember her, but it still hurts. My sister could not bring herself to take some of the money from the house sale to buy a plot or even split the cost with me. Update 2, today is the day of the burial. I plan to update afterward just to say we got it done, but the last 20 hours were overwhelming. My sister canceled the funeral home service room and changed it to a graveside-only service. She received a refund for the room. Her stated reason was that the gun salute should be outside. I found out last night when the funeral home called to ask me to pick up the urn and transport it to the cemetery. My sister is in a wheelchair and claims she could not attend the graveside service. I informed the family group chat. Her son, the only one who still speaks to her, exploded, as did her daughter. He called her, and she cried. The honest reason for canceling was likely that she needed drug money and her disability check had not arrived yet. I arranged for us to gather at a military-themed restaurant in Bozeman, locals know the one, to share stories afterward. Shortly before the service, the funeral home called to offer a room at a discount, but we stuck with our plan. Some clarifications: some people believe I am blaming my sister for becoming addicted to drugs and alcohol at age 10. I am not. I blame my parents for moving us to a drug-heavy area, the government for failing to address the drug crisis, and the medical establishment for not recognizing addiction as the disease it was at the time. If I went into the social and political issues of the late 1970s and early 1980s, this post would be far longer. I blame my parents for trying to buy good behavior, and I blame the recession for the stress that ended their marriage. They also never forced her to finish school, limiting her ability to succeed. I do blame my sister for wasting the many opportunities she was given as an adult. She was given a car, repossessed, a mobile home, lost because she spent welfare money on drugs instead of lot rent, a truck, a partially restored 1963 Chevy C10, sold for drug money, and lost custody of 2 children who thankfully turned out well. This does not include the money she has taken from people over the years. My mother would have been buried in her home state of Pennsylvania near her family if my sister had not taken her remains and disappeared. Update 3, the service was held Thursday at 1 p.m. The American Legion Gallatin Valley Post 14 conducted the final salute with a rifle volley and taps. The Navy sent an officer and enlisted personnel to present the flag. I spoke about my mother's service and said a few words. The snow-covered field limited attendance. Afterward, we met at a restaurant and shared stories. The grandchildren were fascinated to learn what kind of mother she had been and were surprised to hear she once rode a motorcycle to work. When I arrived at the funeral home, I was shocked by how little my sister had arranged. I personally transported my mother's remains to the cemetery, and my brother placed them into the ground. At my father's funeral, we had arranged for a hearse. This time, it was just my wife, my brother, and my mother's urn driving down Main Street Bozeman for one last goodbye. During the ceremony, an SUV pulled up. It was my sister watching from the road. I arranged for the flag to go to my brother since I already had my father's. I could see her shouting when the flag was presented. Afterward, my sister handed her son 2 bags containing vials of my mother's ashes for him and my niece. At the restaurant, they gave them to my brother and me. They are good kids. She then drove by yelling at me for ruining the ceremony and left. We will decide this summer whether to move my mother to Pennsylvania, place her in a national cemetery, or scatter her ashes. Update 4. 7 months later, I am in the process of moving my mother's remains to the Veterans Wall. There have been complications. The VA considers her already buried, so she is no longer entitled to a free burial. Her marker was lost in the mail, and we are working to replace it. The cost to disinter her was astronomical, but I accepted it. In the meantime, we ended the short-term rental. My son has since moved into the house. While short-term renting served its purpose, it was stressful. Bill collectors repeatedly showed up looking for my sister, along with companies trying to retrieve medical equipment she rented for my mother and never returned. Creditors also contacted me trying to locate my sister. They wanted to know whether I inherited or purchased the house. Apparently, she had run up debt on my mother's credit cards. I had to create a PDF with documentation proving I purchased the house outright. That finally stopped the calls. Final update. This will be my final update. Today, I moved my mother's remains into her own plot. She now has her own space and her own recognition as a veteran. It has been over 4 months since the previous update, and the process was exhausting. My sister threatened to stop the move, first by saying she would take the remains, then by filing an objection with the cemetery. Lawyers became involved. Ultimately, once my brother and I agreed, the move could proceed. The city required permits and fees, which caused further delays. Her headstone will be placed in the spring. Standing on that hill today, I felt that I had finally fulfilled a promise. Both of my parents are now properly honored. My mother is no longer an afterthought in my father's grave. Merry Christmas to you all, and I hope you have a peaceful new year.